Sherrie Hewson's ex-husband slams cheating claims and reveals what really happened in their toxic marriage. The Loose Women and Benidorm star's 28-year marriage to Ken Boyd ended in 2001, and she has accused him of driving her to bankruptcy, booze and the verge of suicide. Soap actress Sherrie Hewson's ex-husband today blasts her for accusing him of cheating and reveals his fears she may have done the same to him. Ken Boyd, 63, says he was jealous of the Loose Women and Benidorm star's flirtations throughout their relationship, and worried she was having a fling with a young actor who went on to become a TV household name. And he suspects a dalliance she revealed in her autobiography, with a cast member while appearing on the BBC's Russ Abbott show, may have gone further than she claimed. Sherrie admitted, "I came close once because of his behaviour, but I never cheated on him." But furious Ken, who has admitted cheating on the former Coronation Street and Emmerdale star once in the early 80s, claims he is breaking his silence about their marriage for the sake of their daughter, and because he is fed up with being blamed for everything. In an exclusive no-holds-barred interview, Ken storms, "Enough is enough. Sherrie's had a lot to say about me over the years. The time is right for me to have my say. She's blamed me for her bankruptcy, considering suicide, heavy drinking, her hair falling out, infidelity and eating disorders. Everything bad that has ever happened to her is somehow all my fault." Ken claims Sherrie, 67, has not been truthful over the real reasons she went bankrupt, claiming the star loved to spend, and he says she flew into jealous rages whenever other women looked at him. Sitting on the balcony of his apartment in Spain, Ken leafs through dozens of newspaper interviews Sherrie has given about him since their 28-year marriage ended in 2001. One winds him up more than most. Only days after they briefly reunited for daughter Keely's wedding last year, Sherrie told the Sunday Mirror said she had felt sick at the prospect of seeing him again after 14 years. She said, "Walking Keely down the aisle was supposed to be the most joyous moment of my life. But the ghost of Christmas past had landed by my side." Now Ken aims to haunt her with his suspicions he was not the only one in their marriage to be unfaithful. Ken tells how during their early years together in the mid-70s, he was a doorman at a club in London's Piccadilly. He became suspicious of a young actor who would visit their flat in Barnes to rehearse lines just as he was going to work. "As I was getting on the number 9 bus he'd be turning up," he says. "I saw him arriving in his car. Sherrie told me he'd been round but said he was delivering scripts, that they were rehearsing lines for a show. I found it odd he arrived as I was leaving. He obviously knew the timing. I did confront her, but she stuck to her story. I suspect there was more going on. It was very early in our relationship, years before we were married. But I pushed it to the back of my mind. We were young and happy." But when he read her autobiography published after their split, he says he began to think there was more to it. In her book, the star, who played Itsy supermarket assistant Maureen Webster in Koi from 1993-97, tells of becoming very close to a fellow cast member while filming the Russ Abbott comedy show in Devon in 1988. She wrote, "I'd forgotten how it felt to catch someone looking at you and sense the shiver of excitement, the sexual frisson when you both know you're attracted to each other." But despite the problems Ken and I had, we were still married and had a child together. We both knew the relationship wasn't going anywhere. Ken says, by the time she was doing the Russ Abbott show, we were married. I wasn't suspicious at the time, but she would often arrive home quite late. After reading the book, with hindsight that should have raised a few questions. I did meet the cast on nights out, but there was nothing then that made me suspicious. They were all lovies, touching and cuddling. That's the world they all live in. For years she has accused me of philandering, but that's a lie. She makes out there were numerous women over the years. That's untrue. I had one affair, which I have admitted to and I do regret. I made one mistake and she's gone on about it for years. She thought I was flirting all the time. It was nonsense. If another woman looked at me she would have a go. Ken and Sherrie met in 1976 and wed 6 years later. Keely was born in 1984. The couple parted in 2001, with Ken moving to Spain. They came face to face for the first time since 2002 at their daughter's wedding in October last year. But they happily posed for pictures together and Ken flew back to his home near Marbella, pleased the celebration had gone well and they had parted on good terms. He was shocked when a few days later Sherrie gave the interview about their toxic marriage. Ken says, "I thought things had gone really well, but then she's saying how she dreaded seeing me again, how she was sick at the thought of seeing me. She just can't stop herself." Earlier this year, Sherrie made a guest appearance on Loose Women where she spoke about him yet again. Ken says, "I've kept quiet to protect our daughter as much as possible, but I do feel it's time I had my say." 2 weeks before the wedding, Ken says he found out through a magazine article he was being given a special role on their daughter's big day. "In other words, I wasn't walking her down the aisle in the traditional way," he says. "I put that down to Sherrie. I found out my role by reading about it. It knocked me. I was unsure if I was really going to be made welcome. I love my daughter and I put this down to her being influenced by Sherrie." In the end, both Ken and Sherrie walked the bride down the aisle. They then said "we do" together when asked who gives the bride away. Recalling meeting Sherrie at the ceremony, Ken said, "She said, 'Hi darling, how are you?' I said hi and 5 minutes later we were walking down the aisle. We were either side of Keely and then it came where the father of the bride gives his daughter away and all the tradition went out of the window." During his wedding speech, Ken said, "My advice to you Keely is, don't think the grass is always greener on the other side, it isn't." Sherrie speculated in her interview it was him regretting his infidelity, saying, "I did wonder whether that little line was about us." But Ken says, "It was pointed at her, but the penny didn't drop. After the dinner and speeches she didn't come near me and I didn't go near her. I had a lot of old friends to catch up with." The couple did speak the next day at a family lunch. Ken says, "We talked about old times. It was a really nice day." But Sherrie saw it differently. She said, "I saw Ken again at lunch and just thought, I've no feelings for you at all." The couple are also at odds over her claims that Ken squandered a fortune which led to her being declared bankrupt in 2007. She said, "I don't think I understood the value of money. Unfortunately, I met a husband who was similar. If I'd met the opposite personality to me, none of the things like bankruptcy would have happened." But Ken says, "She once described me as businessman of the year. She says she was the breadwinner, but I was there through the stretches when she was out of work. We worked and paid the bills together as a couple. As the years went on, things did improve and we enjoyed life to the full. She became a Coronation Street star and I got a good job as an aerospace executive." The couple lived a lavish lifestyle, taking exotic holidays and buying Ferraris, Jaguars and a Lotus. They also opened a restaurant in Richmond and another in Kosovo. But Ken says, she would go out buying, taking the credit cards up to the hilt. Buy, spend. Sherrie said, "I was loyal to my ex the entire time of our marriage. He wasn't. His description of our life together is colorful to say the least. He should write scripts for a TV soap, his imagination is clearly good enough.